Earth didn't send diplomats. They sent a dangerous ship, became stunningly clear when the hegemony fleet attacked. As Council Station Omega's defenses crumbled, the massive human warship Defiance leapt between attackers and station, executing surgical strikes that disabled 19 enemy vessels in minutes. Captain Reyes's precision boarding teams captured the remaining ships, transforming Earth from perceived threat to savior in a breathtaking display of controlled power. The grand circular chamber of Council Station Omega hummed with the quiet tension of anticipation. Massive viewports lined the perimeter, offering delegates an unobstructed panorama of distant stars and the gentle curve of the neutral zone border. Ambassador Saren of the Vistari Union stood at his designated platform, four-fingered hands clasped behind his back, gills fluttering with barely concealed anxiety beneath his formal diplomatic vestments. "Honored delegates," intoned Council Leader Mara, her voice resonating through the chamber with practiced authority. Her silver skin caught the ambient light as she gestured toward the central holographic display. "As you are aware, 3 standard months ago, we extended formal invitation to the newly discovered human civilization to join us in peaceful discourse. Today, on Solstice Day, 4723, we gather to witness their arrival." Saren felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. As the Council's foremost expert on peaceful first contacts, he had personally drafted much of the invitation transmission. The humans' home system, Sol, lay at the very edge of charted space, isolated by interstellar dust clouds that had hidden their radio emissions for centuries. Initial scans suggested a technologically advanced but largely insular species, perfect candidates for gradual integration into the greater galactic community. "Ambassador Saren," called Mara, "perhaps you might favor us with your expectations." Saren stepped forward, his slender frame moving with deliberate grace to the central platform. His voice, soft yet carrying, filled the chamber. "If they follow standard protocols, we should expect a small diplomatic shuttle carrying no more than 12 representatives. Our invitation specifically recommended a vessel under 100 meters in length to facilitate docking procedures. The humans' preliminary communications suggest they understand these parameters." Tech Chief Yorn, a fellow Vistari whose skin bore the distinctive blue markings of the technical caste, approached with a data tablet clutched in his hands. His gills pulsated rapidly, a sign of distress that Saren immediately recognized. "Ambassador," Yorn whispered, "long-range scans have detected the approaching vessel. It does not match expected parameters." Saren accepted the tablet, eyes narrowing as he studied the incoming data. His heart accelerated, pumping faster as the implications became clear. "Council Leader," Saren said, his voice now tight with concern, "I believe we may have a situation developing." Mara tilted her head. "Explain." Saren transferred the scan data to the main holographic display. The chamber fell silent as a massive silhouette materialized in the projection, a vessel nearly 2 kilometers in length. Its hull, studded with what were unmistakably weapon emplacements. "The approaching ship is not a diplomatic shuttle," Saren announced. "Based on configuration and energy signatures, we are detecting what appears to be a warship." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some raised in alarm, others demanding immediate defensive measures. Mara's amplified voice cut through the chaos. "Tech Chief Yorn, full analysis." Yorn stepped forward, his fingers dancing across his control interface. "Vessel measures approximately 1.8 kilometers in length. Hull composition suggests advanced alloys, capable of withstanding significant weapons fire. We're detecting..." He paused, rechecking his data. 52 distinct weapon signatures, including what appear to be mass drivers, energy projectors, and missile launch tubes. Power output suggests fusion-based propulsion, with potential faster-than-light capability, using an unknown drive system. "This is outrageous," declared Ambassador Krell of the Partian Consortium, his tentacles writhing in agitation. We extended the hand of peace, and they send instruments of war. I move that we activate defensive systems and deny docking clearance immediately." Saren raised a hand for calm. "Let us not act hastily. There may be a cultural misunderstanding at work." "Misunderstanding?" Krell's voice dripped with sarcasm. "A ship bristling with enough firepower to reduce this station to atoms is hardly a misunderstanding. Ambassador." Saren turned to Mara. "Council leader, I recommend we establish communication before taking any action that might be perceived as hostile." Mara nodded grimly. "Open a channel to the approaching vessel." The central holographic display shifted, resolving into the image of a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, revealing a face etched with the confidence of command. Her eyes, Saren noted, held both intelligence and the unmistakable hardness of a warrior. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Defense Force vessel, Defiance," she announced, her voice crisp and authoritative. "We are responding to your invitation for diplomatic contact." Mara stepped forward. "Captain Reyes, I am Council Leader Mara. We welcome your response to our invitation, but there appears to be some confusion. We requested a diplomatic envoy, not a..." She hesitated, searching for a diplomatic term. "A vessel of such significant military capability." Reyes's expression remained unchanged. "There is no confusion. Council Leader, the Defiance is Earth's diplomatic envoy." Saren moved beside Mara. "Captain, I am Ambassador Saren, specialist in first contact protocols. Perhaps I might clarify our concerns. Your vessel's weapons capabilities appear inconsistent with peaceful diplomatic exchange." "Ambassador Saren," Reyes replied, "on behalf of Earth, I must correct a fundamental misunderstanding. Where we come from, peace and strength are not contradictions. They are complementary. The Defiance represents our commitment to honest diplomacy." "Honest diplomacy?" echoed Krell incredulously from his platform. "You bring weapons to a peaceful gathering." Reyes's gaze shifted to the Partian. "And you conduct your diplomacy from behind the protection of a station with defensive capabilities. The difference is merely one of transparency. We do not hide our strength. We present it openly." The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Saren found himself momentarily speechless. The human's assessment was technically accurate. Omega Station did indeed possess defensive systems, though they were considered a necessary security measure rather than a statement of diplomatic intent. "Captain Reyes," Mara finally responded, "your approach is unusual by our standards. However, in the spirit of cross-cultural understanding, we are willing to continue dialogue. Would you consent to a traditional exchange of cultural information as a preliminary step?" "Of course," Reyes nodded. "We've prepared materials on Earth's history, social structures, and technological development. We'll transmit them immediately. In return, we would appreciate similar information about the Council species." Saren felt a momentary relief. This was familiar territory. The standard protocol for new contacts involved precisely this kind of exchange. Perhaps the situation could be salvaged after all. "Additionally," Reyes continued, "with your permission, we would like to demonstrate our ship's capabilities in a controlled exercise at a safe distance from your station. We believe this transparency will form the foundation of mutual understanding." And just like that, the momentary comfort evaporated. "A weapons demonstration?" Mara asked, unable to keep the shock from her voice. "A capabilities demonstration," Reyes corrected smoothly. "It would take place no closer than 1 million kilometers from your position, with all systems operating at reduced power. We believe showing you what we can do, rather than hiding it, will establish the trust necessary for productive diplomacy." The council chamber once again dissolved into heated debate. Saren found himself at the center of a political storm. Some delegates, led by Krell, demanded immediate expulsion of the human vessel. Others, particularly those from historically vulnerable systems, argued that antagonizing a clearly powerful military force would be foolhardy. Council leader Saren addressed Mara when the chamber had quieted somewhat. I recommend we accept the cultural exchange, but request time to consider the demonstration proposal. This will give us opportunity to better understand human intentions through their transmitted materials. Mara nodded. A reasonable compromise. Captain Reyes, we accept your offer of cultural exchange and will review your proposal for a demonstration. In the meantime, we offer your vessel a holding position at coordinates that will be transmitted to you at a safe distance from the station. Understood, Council Leader, Reyes replied. We will maintain position at the designated coordinates and await your decision. Defiance, out. As the transmission ended, Soren turned to find Tech Chief Yorn at his side again, looking even more distressed than before. What is it now? Saren asked quietly. The humans have already begun their transmission, Yorn replied. But it's not what we expected. Instead of cultural artifacts or historical records, they've sent military logs. Military logs? Combat records, tactical analyses, strategic doctrines. Yorn elaborated. And most disturbing of all, a comprehensive record of every internal conflict in their history, including detailed accounts of weapons development and deployment. Saren felt his gills flutter in alarm. They're not just showing us their strength, they're showing us how they use it. Precisely, Yorn confirmed. And there's more. They've included what appears to be a live feed from their vessel. They're conducting some sort of combat drill. Saren hurried to a private viewing terminal and activated the feed. The screen displayed humans in form-fitting combat suits moving through the corridors of the Defiance with practiced precision. Some carried weapons, while others operated mobile equipment stations. What struck Saren most was not the weaponry, but the coordination. Each human moved with purpose, part of a greater whole, functioning with machine-like efficiency. They're showing us how they fight, Saren murmured. Is this a threat? Yorn asked, his voice tight with concern. Saren watched the drill unfold, noting the discipline, the economy of movement, the clear chain of command. No, he said slowly. I don't think it is. It's a demonstration of capability. Yes, but also of control. They want us to see not just that they can fight, but how precisely they can do so. Over the next several hours, the Council splintered into factions. The Partian Consortium led calls for the humans to be expelled from Council space immediately. The Vistari Union, under Saren's guidance, advocated for continued dialogue while maintaining safe distance. The Tellurian Alliance, remembering their own history of subjugation before joining the Council, argued that the humans' military strength might actually prove beneficial to maintaining peace in contested regions. Saren spent those hours poring over the transmitted materials, trying to understand the human perspective. Their history was indeed violent. Thousands of years of internal conflict that had only relatively recently given way to global unification. Yet, there was something else there too. A pattern of increasing restraint, of developing rules of engagement, of limiting civilian casualties. The humans had not eliminated warfare. They had refined it. As the debate raged on, a minor crisis erupted. A small Vistari scout craft, operating without authorization from the station, approached the Defiance at high speed. According to the pilot's subsequent report, he had intended merely to gather additional sensor data, but a weapon system had activated automatically due to a calibration error. The scout fired a single energy pulse toward the human vessel. The reaction was immediate and devastating in its precision. The Defiance did not return fire. Instead, it deployed what appeared to be a focused electromagnetic pulse that disabled the scout's propulsion and weapon systems without damaging life support. Within minutes, a small craft launched from the Defiance, intercepted the disabled scout, and towed it back to Omega Station's docking bay. Captain Reyes's transmission followed moments later. Council Station Omega. We have returned your vessel intact. The pilot is unharmed. We understand this was likely an unauthorized action, and not an official hostile act. Nevertheless, we request clarification. Mara, visibly shaken, responded. Captain Reyes, please accept our deepest apologies. The scout was acting without authorization. We are investigating the incident and will ensure appropriate measures are taken. Understood, Reyes replied. We consider the matter closed. When the transmission ended, Saren turned to Mara. They could have destroyed that scout in self-defense, and few would have questioned their right to do so. Instead, they disabled it with minimal force and returned it intact. Your point, Ambassador? Mara asked. They're showing restraint, deliberate, calculated restraint. They want us to see not just their capacity for violence, but their capacity to limit it. Before Mara could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Tech Chief Yorn rushed to the central console, his fingers flying across the controls. Multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel, he announced, voice tight with panic. Configuration matches hegemony warships. The hegemony, a loose confederation of militant species from the outer reaches of known space. For years, they had conducted raids against outlying Council worlds, always careful to avoid direct confrontation with the Council's combined defensive fleet. That they would strike at Omega Station itself was unprecedented. How many? Demanded Mara. 27 vessels, Yorn replied. Heavy cruiser configuration. They're deploying an attack formation. Saren felt cold dread settle in his gut. Omega Station's defenses were designed to repel pirates and the occasional rogue vessel, not a coordinated assault by a hegemony battle group. They must have detected the human vessel and decided to eliminate a potential Council ally. Saren reasoned aloud. Or perhaps they hoped to capture its technology. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a heavily armored being with reptilian features. Council Station Omega, the figure growled in accented common speech. I am War Leader Krazak of the Hegemony. The vessel in your proximity possesses technology that threatens hegemony interests. Surrender it to us, or we will take it by force. Mara straightened her spine. War Leader, the vessel you refer to is engaged in diplomatic contact with the Council. It is under our protection. Any hostile action against it will be considered an act of war against the Council itself. Krazak's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Your station's defensive capabilities are known to us, Council Leader. You cannot protect yourselves, let alone an isolated vessel. The transmission cut abruptly. Moments later, the first energy barrages struck Omega's shields. Shields at 87% and falling, reported Yorn. Their weapons are more powerful than our intelligence suggested. Activate all defensive systems, ordered Mara, and open a channel to the Defiance. Before the communication could be established, the sensor display showed the massive human vessel accelerating toward the hegemony fleet. What are they doing? Whispered Yorn. Saren watched, transfixed, as the Defiance positioned itself between Omega Station and the advancing hegemony warships. They're protecting us. The main screen split, showing both the external view of the unfolding battle and Captain Reyes's face. Council Station Omega, she said, her voice calm despite the circumstances. We are engaging the hostile force. Please reinforce your shields and prepare to receive potential casualties. Captain, Mara responded, we cannot ask you to fight our battles. You didn't ask, Council Leader. Reyes replied with the ghost of a smile. Consider this the demonstration we discussed earlier. What followed was unlike anything Saren had ever witnessed. The Defiance moved with impossible agility for a vessel of its size, its weapons firing with surgical precision. Each shot targeted propulsion, weapons, or command systems, disabling rather than destroying. Within minutes, 19 hegemony vessels drifted powerless, their crews trapped but alive. The remaining 8 hegemony ships regrouped, attempting to concentrate their fire on the human vessel. The Defiance absorbed multiple direct hits, its advanced shielding flaring with each impact but holding. "They're boxing themselves in," Saren observed, watching the tactical display. "The humans are herding them into a containment formation." Indeed, the Defiance was executing a complex series of maneuvers that forced the hegemony vessels into an increasingly tight cluster. Once they were sufficiently contained, the human ship launched what appeared to be small craft from multiple bays. "Boarding parties," breathed Yorn in disbelief. "They're sending troops directly onto the enemy vessels." The council chamber watched in stunned silence as the human boarding team systematically captured the hegemony command ships. Tactical feeds showed armored humans moving through hostile corridors with the same precision Saren had observed in their earlier drill. Within an hour, all 27 hegemony vessels had been neutralized with minimal casualties on either side. Captain Reyes's face appeared once more on the main screen. "Council Station Omega. The threat has been contained. We have secured the hegemony vessels and have their crews in custody. We request permission to dock and transfer prisoners to your security facilities." Mara, still visibly shocked by the efficiency of the human response, managed to find her voice. "Permission granted, Captain, and thank you." In the aftermath of the battle, Omega Station transformed. Security checkpoints were established, with mixed teams of Council security personnel and human Marines working side by side. The station's central chamber, once dedicated to diplomatic discourse, now served as a joint command center, coordinating the processing of hegemony prisoners and the security of surrounding space. Saren found himself working closely with Captain Reyes, their initial wariness gradually giving way to mutual respect. 3 days after the battle, they stood together in a quiet observation deck, watching as Council engineering teams examined the captured hegemony vessels. "You could have destroyed them all," Saren observed. "It might have been simpler." Reyes shook her head. "Destruction is rarely the optimal outcome. Ambassador, disabled enemies can be questioned. Their technology can be studied. Their crews can be rehabilitated, or at least contained. Dead adversaries teach you nothing and may create martyrs." "A surprisingly diplomatic perspective for a warrior," Saren noted. "That's precisely what I've been trying to explain since our arrival," Reyes replied. "On Earth, we don't separate diplomacy and military capability. They are aspects of the same function, ensuring security and stability." "It goes against everything the Council has practiced for centuries," Saren said. "We've always believed that true diplomacy requires the absence of threat." "And how has that worked for you?" Reyes asked, gesturing toward the captured hegemony ships. "These raiders have been striking your outlying worlds for years, according to your own records. Yet the Council responded with diplomatic protests, rather than defensive action." Saren's gills fluttered in discomfort. "We believed that showing restraint would eventually bring them to the negotiating table. Instead, it convinced them you were weak," Reyes countered. "Where I come from, we learned long ago that peace isn't the natural state of things. It must be actively maintained. Sometimes that means fighting to create the conditions where diplomacy can succeed." An emergency council session was called the following day. The chamber, now reconfigured with tactical displays and security stations, hummed with a new energy as delegates debated the implications of the hegemony attack and the human response. "The facts are undeniable," Saren addressed the assembled representatives. "Without the intervention of the Defiance, this station and everyone aboard would likely have been destroyed or captured. The humans demonstrated not just overwhelming force, but precision, restraint, and a commitment to minimizing loss of life." "So we are to simply accept their philosophy of peace through strength?" demanded Ambassador Krell, though his opposition seemed more perfunctory than passionate now. "I believe we should consider it," Saren replied. For too long, we have allowed threats like the hegemony to persist at our borders, endangering our outlying worlds. The humans have shown us an alternative approach, one that combines readiness for conflict with a genuine desire to avoid it when possible. After hours of debate, the Council voted on an emergency charter that granted Earth limited enforcement rights within Council space, authorizing the Defiance and future human vessels to respond to attacks on Council worlds and shipping lanes. In return, Earth would share certain military technologies and training methods with Council security forces. Captain Reyes and Saren formalized the agreement in a ceremony that combined Council tradition with human military honors. As they signed the document, Saren reflected on how dramatically his perspective had changed in just a few short days. "I must confess," he said quietly to Reyes as the ceremony concluded. "When your ship first appeared, I feared we were witnessing the end of peace in Council space." "And now?" she asked. "Now I wonder if we're seeing the beginning of a more honest peace, one based on mutual respect rather than mutual pretense." 6 months later, Saren stood once again in the observation deck, gazing out at the Defiance docked at Omega Station. The massive vessel had become a familiar sight, a sentinel of the new era in Council human relations. Since the implementation of the Joint Security Charter, border skirmishes had plummeted by 78%. Trade lanes that had been regularly harassed by raiders now flowed freely, protected by joint patrols. Tech Chief Yorn joined him at the viewport, data tablet in hand. "The latest reports from the outer systems," he said, passing the device to Saren. "Another month without significant incidents." Saren nodded, scanning the figures. "And the integration of human tactical systems." "Proceeding ahead of schedule," Yorn replied. "The training programs Captain Reyes established have been remarkably effective. Our security forces have adopted many of their protocols, particularly regarding precision engagement and non-lethal containment." "And the diplomatic front?" Yorn's gills fluttered in what Saren now recognized as amusement. "That's the most surprising development. 3 former hegemony worlds have formally requested Council membership, citing the new security paradigm as their motivation. They're tired of the constant warfare and see the human approach as a path to stability without surrender." Saren handed back the tablet. "Have we received any communication from War Leader Krazak since his release?" "Nothing direct," Yorn said. "But intelligence suggests he's lost considerable support among the hegemony leadership. His failure here demonstrated the costs of aggression against the Council Human Alliance." The door to the observation deck slid open, admitting Captain Reyes. She had discarded her formal uniform for the working attire Saren had come to associate with her day-to-day activities. Practical, utilitarian, yet still carrying the insignia of her rank and responsibility. "Ambassador," she greeted him. "I thought I might find you here." "Captain," Saren acknowledged with a slight bow. "I was just discussing with Tech Chief Yorn the remarkable changes of the past months." "Changes indeed," Reyes agreed. "My superiors on Earth are pleased with the progress. The joint security operations have proven more successful than even our optimistic projections suggested." "And the diplomatic aspects?" Saren asked. Reyes smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually serious countenance. "That's actually why I sought you out. Earth is establishing a permanent embassy on Omega Station. I've been asked to serve as our first official ambassador." "You?" Saren couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. "But you're a military officer." Reyes corrected. "I've accepted retirement from active service to take this position. Though in Earth's view, the distinction is less meaningful than you might think." "The warrior becomes the diplomat," Saren mused. "Perhaps there's a certain logic to it. You've certainly demonstrated an understanding of both spheres." "I was hoping," Reyes continued, "that you might consider serving as my advisor. Your knowledge of Council protocols and species would be invaluable, and your experience with our unconventional approach to diplomacy makes you uniquely qualified." Saren felt his heart quicken at the prospect. 6 months ago, he would have rejected such an offer outright, seeing it as a compromise of his diplomatic principles. Now, he recognized it for what it was, an opportunity to forge a new kind of peace. "I would be honored, Ambassador Reyes," he said formally, as Yorn excused himself to return to his duties. Saren and Reyes stood in companionable silence, watching as a council security vessel practiced maneuvers alongside a smaller human craft, the two moving in coordinated patterns that spoke of growing trust and integration. "When your ship first arrived," Saren said reflectively, "I believed Earth had made a terrible mistake, sending warriors instead of diplomats." "And now?" Reyes asked, echoing their exchange from months earlier. Saren turned to face her fully. "Now I understand that Earth didn't make a mistake at all. You sent exactly what the situation required, diplomats capable of enforcing the peace they negotiate." "The best treaties," Reyes replied, "are those where all parties understand exactly what's at stake and what each is capable of. Honesty about power doesn't threaten peace, it secures it." Beyond the viewport, the stars shone steadily in the vastness of space. The Defiance gleamed in the station's external lighting, its weapon systems quiet but visible, a constant reminder of capacity and restraint. Saren found comfort in that visibility now, understanding at last what the humans had tried to tell them from the beginning. True peace was not the absence of strength, but its transparent and judicious application. As he watched a new vessel approach the station, the first diplomatic ship from a former hegemony world, Saren reflected that perhaps the greatest diplomatic gift Earth had brought to the Council was not their military might, but their willingness to acknowledge the reality that peace must sometimes be defended with force. In that honesty lay the foundation for a more lasting harmony among the stars. "They're hailing the station," noted Reyes, observing the approaching ship. "Then, let's welcome them," Saren replied, "in the new tradition, with honesty about our strength and sincere hope for peace." Together, the warrior turned diplomat and the diplomat who had learned from warriors moved toward the council chamber to greet the newest participants in their evolving galactic order, an order founded not on the pretense of perfect harmony, but on the realistic pursuit of stability through transparent strength and mutual respect. And docked at Omega's port. The Defiance stood watch, no longer a shocking anomaly, but the sentinel of a new era, where the lines between warrior and diplomat had blurred into something more honest, more effective, and perhaps, in the end, more truly peaceful than either could have achieved alone.